Hello. Some of you may know what the Psychis SMP is. It's a server that had a newish concept at the time where you had a plugin alongside a mod where the mod displayed icons, custom ability selection GUIs, and even allowed for keybinds to activate abilities. I'm the developer behind that plugin and mod, and I wanted to share one of the dumbest things I've ever experienced in my entire plugin development career. So on the server, there are around 6 ability classes called variants. Each variant has a passive and 2 abilities. Most of these were somewhat simple, but there was one that should have been one of the easier ones. Dolus is the variant themed around the manipulation of space. I think anyways. The passive increases gravity, the first ability sucks nearby entities towards you, and the third casts a cylinder that makes moving incredibly difficult. And so I started coding. Typically I start with the passive as it's usually the easiest, but I've never actually changed the player's gravity before. Now, if I don't know something when I'm programming, I usually think about how I would implement it in my own project and try to see if the developers had the same idea as me. If I were making player physics, I would store the player's gravity in a variable, so that if I wanted to change it, it would be as easy as changing this one number right here. So logically, I try to see if there was a gravity variable that I could just, change. Okay, player.setGravity. Oh no, it's a boolean. Booleans are one of the most complicated variable types in all of programming. I'm joking, of course. It can literally only be one of two things, true or false. It's as simple as it gets. But that's not what I actually want. I want to change the speed of gravity, not whether gravity is enabled or not. My first idea was a flop. So I did what any good programmer does when they don't know something, that being Googling it, of course. One Google search later came up with nothing. Awesome. I was on my own for this one. My next idea was to go even farther, thinking about how I would implement the actual gravity force itself. And so what I would do is I would add a gravity force to the player's velocity every game tick, so that they would fall faster and faster. Velocity is an object speed, if you didn't know. Genius idea, right? And it's super simple too. Every game tick, I just set the player's velocity to their current velocity minus the gravity variable. It's bound to work, right? What is happening? Usually this type of thing works just fine for other mobs, so why is this different? Why am I moving so weirdly? I was stuck on this for a long time. I tried idea after idea and nothing seemed to work. I even tried levitation effects with invalid numbers to simulate the effect I was looking for, but to no avail. After probably about an hour or two, I decided I had to call it quits. I finished the rest of Dolus and even the other variants. The last thing I had to do was to get Dolus's faster gravity working. I tried even longer and eventually I found the solution. So you know how the velocity thing works fine for other entities but not the player? Well, I obviously know about the whole server-side client-side thing, but I would expect other issues than what's happening here. As it turns out, the player velocity in Spigot is a complete lie. I found this forum post by someone who's like 10 times smarter than me, and it's up on screen right now, but to summarize, when you set the player velocity, it doesn't do what you expect. Instead of, setting the player velocity, it just tells the client that they should set the velocity. Doesn't matter when, just, hey, client, make sure you set the velocity. The delays actually cause to things like ping and other delays, like with how Minecraft's networking works, and just Minecraft being Minecraft. And it turns out the method to get the player's current velocity is broken as well, and it doesn't actually provide any useful information at all. So basically, the velocity idea would never work. After reading that, I said, you know what, I'm ditching the server-side implementation. This is a plugin and mod combo after all. If I can't change the player's physics server-side, I'll just do it client-side. But there's one small problem. I think everyone at this point knows how messy Minecraft's code is, but I don't think most know how truly chaotic and somewhat beautiful it is. I panicked when I saw this. How on earth was I supposed to modify the gravity in this chaotic, messy, nightmare of a Oh, there it is. And so I wrote a mixin, which is basically just a fancy way to say I changed the game's code. If the player's variant is Dolus, represented by a 5, it will make the gravity about 0.125% faster, enough to change the field gravity so that it was different, but not in a bad way. I was able to finish Psychis, people loved the plugin, and we all lived happily ever after. Wait, what the fuck? So guess what? It turns out, as I was writing this script, I took a look at the code again, and realized I messed up. It turns out, there's an attribute called generic_gravity that, you guessed it, modifies the gravity of entities. You can just change it in-game, and it just works. Oh my god, I am such an idiot. All of that was for nothing. Never mind again. So I did a little sanity check, and I loaded up the version the plugin was made in, that being 1.20.1, and no, the attribute is not there. It was added sometime between 1.20.1 and 1.21, so I thought it was the biggest doofus of all time, and looks like that wasn't the case this time. I hope you all enjoyed this silly little story. Take care.